doing auditing as well. And so while we were doing the audit, because I was doing auditing, it gave me another area, but I also realized I didn't quite like it. I loved working. I was good at my job, even to the point I was offered a full-time job with this, but I did not enjoy it at all because it was, I realized I liked working with people, and with auditing, you were always behind closed doors looking at books. And even though the people invited you in, they always thought you were the IRS trying to audit them. And so I found I didn't realize I didn't enjoy my job. So I took the faith step to quit the job and hopefully figure out what was going on with my life. And in the process, I started getting new interviews for general manager jobs in hotels, and it was exciting. I was about to make a decision on one particular one when someone asked me if I wanted to work in full-time ministry with a ministry I'd volunteered in. And while I thought it was an easy no, I didn't take it lightly. I decided to pray and all of that, and realized there was still a yearning in me. And so I decided to ask permission first, because I wanted to be sure that I was in the right place. And as I talked to people, people kept calling out God's gift in me, and realizing that, oh, you could be a missionary. And that's not why I came to America, to be a missionary. And so my first step was I wanted to honor my mother, who was a widow and who had sacrificed so much. And so I asked her if she will, if what she thought and all of that. And she is a military woman, so I was expecting her to explode in anger, but then she was just quiet, and she said, actually, that's fine. And I was so shocked. And I asked her again, because being a missionary involves raising your own financial support. And I said, that means, the expectations you have of me may not be met. And she said, that's fine. I've seen you in ministry with university students, and I see how happy and fulfilled you look. And I've seen you work also in the industry, the hotel industry, and you work hard, but you don't seem as happy. And so that was eye-opening for me. And I realized I was secretly hoping that she would say no, so that I would be excluded from this whole thing of being called to ministry. But she said yes. So I was left to face my own insecurities and all of that. And I realized there was pride, there was fear of making this big step into ministry. And I think of all of those things, I struggled with God in the fact that he had called me to hospitality. And so I was wrestling with God. If you've called me to hospitality, you're changing my plan. And hospitality means, if you look at it in the Greek, it means a lover of strangers. And I realized I did want to welcome strangers in hotels and create this space where people feel welcome. And in the time of study and realizing what all this was, I felt like the Lord was teaching me that he was still calling me to hospitality, just that my assignment had changed. And so was calling me to a ministry of hospitality in working with students from different countries, with international students, and not just to welcome them into the United States and a new environment, but to his kingdom. And so that changed a lot for me in looking at Paul's life, where Paul said that, I've been, as for a Jew, I've been a Jew. And he named all his credentials, but he said he counted it all at loss. And so in all of these things, it made me realize that this big jump I was making, God was with me in it. I remember telling a few people who thought they always ask, are you sure it's a real job? Or, putting the fear in you with how they even asked you questions. But on that day when I said yes, I knew that I was saying a yes to to the same calling that God had given me all along of hospitality, just in a different way. So it was a big switch, like Sharon had mentioned, in my life. It was such a huge shift. And I've over the past 18 years of full-time ministry, I have seen God continue to use hospitality in different ways as I've even changed different roles. And so one of the things I mentioned at the beginning is just even how experience has shaped all of this. And there's a quote that says, we don't only learn from experience, we learn by reflection on the experience. And as I reflect back, just some key things that I've realized in my stories is that stages of life and change can affect even your career and your calling. And that's what's happened for me. And transitions are always a given in your life. And if you pay attention to what the transitions are and listen to God and trust him, he will guide you. And the last verse I'll share as I close my story is Proverbs 16:3 in the Amplified Version. Says, roll your works upon the Lord, commit and trust them wholly to him. He will cause your thoughts to become agreeable to his will, and then your plans will be established and succeed. And so I think my big jump was not because I'm brave or courageous. I think it's because of the God I trust in, and because I continually hold on to him to give direction as I look into my life, as I've listened to my mentors, my cheerleaders, and people who've called out God's gifts in me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jovine. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on, but if anybody has any direct questions for Jovine, feel free to put them in the chat. Just start it with for Jovine so that we can come back to it. The next person who's going to tell us the truth about their career is Dr. Cecil Papu. I'm going to hand over to him. And let me see. Dr. Papu, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Hey, nice to see you. Okay, so in a few minutes, just tell us the truth about your career. Thank you.
Okay, so the truth about my career, I would say growing up, I've always liked science, and it's always been something I've wanted to do. Initially, my first choice of career was aerospace engineering, because my dad was a pilot and my brothers were pilots, and one was an engineer. So I thought, I could also go into it. And I started learning physics and math at a very early age, learning about planes and all that. As I grew up, my mom started talking more about being a doctor, and talking about the benefits. You get a house, you get a car, that kind of thing, and the prestige. So I thought, that's not a bad idea. It's also science. So I thought, okay, then I can look into that. So when I went to SS, I chose a course that would allow me to have so many choices. So I included physics, chemistry, biology in my choices. So that when I go to university, I can have so many choices and decide which one I wanted. But then, just after I finished school, I noticed my brother came home and he was at home for like 2 years. And I was like, I don't want to be idle after school. I don't want to have to wait and struggle to get a job. And after what I've heard about medicine from my mom, I thought, hey, once I finish school, straight into the hospital, I have a job. So I was like, okay, medicine. And I kind of like biology too. So I thought, why not? So when I went to university, I chose human biological science. I didn't know in tech you could choose human biology and do medicine straight away. So I had to do 1 year of biological science, and then later realized I had to change to human biology. So after a year, I switched to human biology, and then I started medicine. That was, at that point, I could have changed. I actually nearly went to do computer science. I was like, nah, let me just stick with the medicine. 2 years into medical school, and I was like, nah, this is not for me. But I went through with it. I did everything. It was a struggle, especially in my final years, from fourth year to my final years. It was a struggle, and to a point where I started developing depression. And at that point, I needed an outlet. So even in my fifth year, I stopped learning anything related to medicine. I just go to class, pay attention, write tests, I was just going through emotions. And I spent the whole year of my fifth year learning photography, reading about all sorts of things aside medicine. And, it kind of helped, but I realized I can't go on like that, because if I go on that way, I'm going to fail. So, and my dad was very strict when it came to, studying and all. So to a point where he always tells me, if you don't pass your exams, you're going to be a truck pusher. And, he wouldn't want that to happen. And he sticks to his words. If he says he's not going to mind you, he won't mind you. So I had to, forget everything and finish medical school. In my final year, that was when I discovered, baking. Not that I discovered. I'm from a baking background. My mom is a caterer. My stepmom was into baking. So growing up, I learned packaging. So my final years, I just put what I had learned growing up into practice, and that was a very good outlet for me, especially with the depression, because school was tough. Pressure from the house, everything was tough. So every time after exams, I cook, I bake for friends, we have a party, we enjoy ourselves, and then we study. So then slowly I finished medical school, then I started working. But the baking didn't stop because I was enjoying myself. And being at home wasn't too fun either, because I was living with my stepmom, and it has its challenges. So baking was something that made me happy, and I continued. I learned, but at that time it was just a hobby. So I really wasn't taking it seriously. I wasn't thinking of making a job out of it or anything. I just enjoyed myself. So when I started work at 37, my house job, I would bake, take it to work. Sometimes I even use the baking to bribe my colleagues when I'm late, so they can do some of my ward runs for me. And I was really good with my hands. So I would do their procedures for them in exchange for them doing my ward rounds. And after, I would reward them with baked goods. And it worked pretty well. And it got to a time, every Friday we have a party, a ward party. So I would bake by myself and bring it, and everybody would enjoy. Until the next time when we're having a ward party, they actually came to me and said, "Oh, we want you to bake for us. We'll pay you." And I was like, "Oh, don't worry. I mean, it's nothing." So I actually didn't make them pay, and I did it because it was something I enjoyed. So that went on for a few months, and I went to a different ward, the NICU, neonatal ward. And that was where I got my first order. So I baked a cake for a friend, and they gave it to my head of department, the consultant of that department, and she enjoyed it. So she called me aside, and she was like, she wants to see me. And I was like, yeah, what have I done wrong? So I entered her office, and she was like, "Oh, I'm Gerald, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of you. You've been baking, and I tried your cake one time, and it was really, really good. And my husband's birthday is around the corner, so I want you to make cookies for me." And I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So I made the cookies and everything. And after I gave her the cookies, she was like, "Are you sure you're making any profit? Because this thing, I mean, I've bought cookies before, and yours is relatively cheap and really good. So are you sure you're making any profit?" At that time, I didn't know better. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm making profit." And that was how it started. And I continued from there. My second year house job, I took it to the Volta region, and that is how it was born. And my mom never really enjoyed it. That's the fact that I was baking, because she was like, "Yeah, doctor, why should you be baking? You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your dad's money after going to school for 7 years. Why are you baking?" My dad was so pissed off. Anytime someone came home and came to pick up cake, and they'll go like, "Oh, please, I'm looking for the doctor that bakes," then he would start fuming. He never really complained to me. He would go and tell my mom, and my mom would scold me. But I was stubborn, and that was what made me happy. So I thought, hey, I'm not going to stop. To a point where he threatened me that, "Look, if you do not stop, I'm not going." At that time, I wasn't getting any pocket. I wasn't getting paid, so he was giving me pocket money. So Like he threatened me with that. And so I stopped for 2 weeks and I started again. And he saw that, look, this boy is not going to stop. This is something he enjoys. So he stopped talking about it. He will only once in a while complain to my mother. So I kept asking myself that, like, God, is this really what you want me to do? Because I'm not enjoying the medicine. I mean, I haven't had any issues at work. I do my job very well. Patients are happy and everything, but I am not happy. And I'm really good at this. And, tell me something. Let me know that this is what I really need to do. But I don't know if I got an answer or not, but I just kept going. And I noticed that through baking, I've had a lot of breakthroughs through baking than I did being a doctor. And at that point, I was like, okay, look, since people are not happy with what I'm doing, and my parents are not happy with what I'm doing, I'll still bake. I won't stop the doctor. I'll just bake alongside. So then after house job, I did locum here and there. I wasn't so keen on going into a government hospital. So I was jumping from private hospital to another. Then I finally got a job in Sakumono, Antema actually, and I was living in Sakumono. And that was when I got my turning point. I was going to work and everything was fine, and then things I was experiencing back when I was in a house job, the bullying and, the at that time, the medical system wasn't the best, and in a private hospital, sometimes the system isn't also the best. And I always told myself that I'm happy with the baking I'm doing. Why should I be depressed doing something I do not enjoy doing? So a year into working in a private hospital in Tema, I wasn't really enjoying my relationship with my boss and everything. And I saw that, look, I was really good at what I was doing. Way, way better than being a doctor. I was happy and I was even making people happier. And that was the whole goal of even becoming a doctor, making people happy, helping. And I managed to help people with food. And I was so good at it. So I thought, hey, why not? So a year into working in the hospital, I told my girlfriend that, look, I really want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And she was like, no, don't quit. What if you start baking and it doesn't turn out well? And I was like, what do you mean it doesn't turn out well? I've been doing this for 5 years. And it has been fine. I haven't had any issues. It's been good for 5 years. And there's been growth. So why wouldn't it go well if I give it 100% attention? So I listened to her and I stayed in the hospital for another 4 months. And I was like, look, I can't anymore. Because I come home depressed. I'm unable to do anything. I am unable to socialize. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I was down. And it was only baking that could get me up. So I was like, look, I'm going to quit. So that was when I quit and I made that bold step of going full time with baking. And to be frank, I haven't looked back since. I haven't missed it. I've not missed being a doctor. And it's been a great journey. It's not easy. Most people would think being an entrepreneur and working from home and having your own time, they think, oh, you are living the life. But it actually isn't, because you are working 24/7. You wake up at dawn and you can be up the whole day. Sometimes you can be up in the middle of the night. You don't sleep. It's tough. But in the end, I look at my sanity, and once it makes me happy, I'm good. That was it for me. So it's been 3 years now since I quit. I quit in 2018, and it's been 3 years now, and I can confidently say it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. And most people will be thinking, but you've been a doctor, you went to school for 7 years. Why do you throw all away? I always tell people that if I hadn't been a doctor, I wouldn't have found my passion. So it isn't a waste. Plus, I can always go back to being a doctor. I actually still, I won't say practice, but I kind of consult. I have friends and family who still come to me for medical advice when they're sick and all that. And, it still feels good to be able to help people. But what truly makes me happy is the baking. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So it's not really what you go to school to learn to do. Sometimes through that, you'll be able to see what you really want. My dad always also said that if you're doing something, do it very well, no matter what it is. And always try new things. As much as he said that, anytime I tried new things, he didn't like it. By the end, he understood. You see, and I had to try so many things. Eventually, I found baking. So it's not always what you go to school to do. And sometimes you need to look deep down and find what really makes you happy, what motivates you, what you're good at, and then you go for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think that it's a very interesting, when we started promoting the show, this session, there was a lot of people asking about you specifically. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions for you. I want to move on to our next panelist, but if anybody has any questions for the doctor, please feel free to put it in the chat and just label it to the doctor so that we know, but we'll come back to a discussion period. But up next, let me invite Irene Akwaku to tell us the truth about her career. Hi, Irene.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Irene.
Okay.
Your turn.
Good. All right then. Thank you so much. So I will try. I told Cecil Gerald that look, I'm going to give all the time to him because his is a very interesting one. So I'm not going to waste that. I'm not going to keep long. But there are a few things or pointers I want to bring across. Now, you know how certain times when you really feel that you have God haven't spoken to you about a turning or what you should do, and then you go and you face hurdles or struggles, and then the question starts looming through your mind asking, is this the right way that God wanted me to go? It happens to us so many times, and from my story, you know why I am saying that. When Jesus was in the boat, there was a storm. Good. When Peter was walking on the sea, he started sinking because he looked elsewhere. So yes, we do face issues, even though that Jesus is with us or God has directed us. From the onset, I wanted to be a civil engineer. My dad was a civil engineer. I was the first of his children, and he would carry me along, doing everything. Then along the line, physics wasn't too much of my friend, so I couldn't get into passing the physics test and all that. So that pushed me a bit, but the figures I loved. So whilst I loved figures, I remember a friend of mine suggesting years ago that, then just go into accounting. My dad was like, okay, not bad. So I went into accounting. That was my journey into accounting. But whilst doing that, I got a job, first job at Electricity Corporation. Then I didn't know that was the vision of my dad for me. And with other speakers, you can tell clearly how our parents at that stage really are influenced in our lives. Okay, so he wanted me to work at a bank. So although I was at electricity, I seem to have settled in, enjoying it. There was this opening to then a bank that had just come, which was called Meridian BIAO. I don't know whether some of you remember that bank, but long ago. And my father did not know anyone there, but knew the MD of EcoBank because he did some furniture works for him with the company he was working with, my dad. So asked me to see, went to see. I was going there a number of times. Then went to the bank at Meridian Bank. To cut a long story short, I got in there. My first pay slip, the one at the bank, was lesser than what I was getting at electricity. And I remember so well my father telling me that you can never compare a bank with Electricity Company of Ghana. Forgive me if anyone is on it. I didn't know my father was giving me the advice, and I guess he was right years down the lane. So I left to join the bank. My career there, if I should put it, was something that I'll say that, okay, I can see God's hand in all this. got promoted at the right times, moved up. But I knew that I was called to lead somehow. I don't know how I stumbled on that. But my first departmental meeting that I had years ago, I had just gone in as a clerk at the bank. My boss put me on board and said, "Look, Irene, what do you want to be in the next 5 years?" I don't know where the words came from. I said, "I want to be a one-stop shop at finance department. When you see me at finance, you should have all your answers, all your questions answered, and you should be fine." Since then, it was always nagging. Then Irene, learn every schedule. So I move from here, I will push, I'll learn that and learn that. Cut long story short, God promoted me. But then the trials and temptations that come in life also started when our bank was taken over by EcoBank. I started questioning myself, God, really? Is that where you wanted us to be? Because I knew that if we had stayed on, I could have gotten far in my career there and even rise. I was rising there. I'd become the first executive member lady who was at the executive level taking the decisions at the bank. And so I knew that was the path. When the measure came, I said, God, so what is happening? I thought I was going to have my career here and move up. Well, I decided, look, just pray. Prayed, we went into the merger. Now, after we got in there, I had to really find my level. This is a new place, new territory, nothing. God opened the door. And then I was able to do tax a bit. And then I moved to the investment banking section. But just like how Cecil said, anytime I went for a meeting at our group level, which is at Lome, I would always come back home and tell my husband, there's something that is really not making me settle and be at peace. I don't know. I kept on saying it and I just couldn't pinpoint my hand on, how certain times, anyway, they say, ladies, we have the hunch, whatever it is, or God talking to us in so many ways. So I started praying about it. And I deeply prayed about it and said, God, if it is your way, if it is your will, show me what to do. What is my next step? What should I do? But I thank God that anytime when we go into prayer, He directs us. Guess what? I started this other business on the side into snacks. So plantain chips, achomo, tidbits here and there, from one level to the other, one level to the other, one level, whilst at EcoBank. At that place where I did a lot of soul searching there. So that was when I started branching into this entrepreneurship bit there. I'm so glad I did, and I'm so glad I'm still doing it now, hoping that it goes further. That's where we are now. But one of the things that kept me up was this really unsettling thing. Anytime I travel for our conferences or go for our meetings at the head office, it's a wonderful place, nice, beautiful place. Building Lome, you meet all the big guys and all the people who worked at Citibank, at JP Morgan Chase. You meet all those guys, have meetings and stuff with them. But I'm coming back home and I still did not feel so settled. So I saw this advert. I applied in 2014. I was never called. Then in 2017, I saw the same advert. I applied, which is where I am now, Lincoln Community School. And then when this time I was called, cut a long story short, went for so many interviews. I think third interview. In fact, one time they invited me for a meeting. I was like, I haven't been even brought in, but they needed to find out some more. Got a job. When I got in there, my friend told me that, Irene, you should know that your coming here is a miracle. And I said, yes, I know. Now, the main issue is that everyone asks, why the switch? Why would you do banking over 23 years, 22 years of banking? And in your last 10 years or so of your career, you want to spend somewhere else where you have to start. I knew that this was the piece, this was where God wanted me to be. Just because I think naturally I have discovered along the line that I'm a people's person, and I really love the fact that whatever I do in a day, it goes along to put a smile in a child or a parent's face. And it's so fulfilling. I didn't know I'll come to this stage in my last 10 years where I should be ganging to become an MD, right, of a bank or a directorship of a bank. But I found myself here, and I've been 4 years down this road. Oh, yes, God willing, January 2022, I'll be 4 years in Lincoln. I have never in one day looked back. I saw a friend in the market at a shop and said, "Hi, Irene, I hear you've moved." And an Echo banker. I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you sure that you're not missing the money?" And I said, "No, I am rather missing the loans." And he just laughed. But this is a typical setting where everybody believes that you have to be at a bank. But I am here to say that when we listen to God's direction as to what to do, He directs us where to go, where we feel fulfilled. And believe you me, He also supplies your needs. He also supplies your needs. I mean, Jovin's story is one miraculous one. And definitely when you're taking such steps, you are wondering, because I was asked at my interview more than, I cannot remember the number of times, but they kept on asking, "Why do you want to leave? Why do you?" They kept on asking so many times why you wanted to leave. I knew it was time. I knew God had spoken that I should go. So with a career, yes, path, civil engineer through accounting, through banking and all these, through corporate politics here and there with measures and acquisition, and through it all, still listening to God, branching off to entrepreneurship, and now at a school, still being an accountant, but enjoying every bit of it. I just hope I've given you some pathway through my career. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. That was a very interesting account. In the right time too. Thank you so much. We'll come to a discussion point. If you have any questions specifically for Irene, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll ask. Up next, and our final panelist, we have Mr. Kofi Sampong. So Kofi, I'm going to hand over to you. Your turn to tell us the truth about your career.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. We can hear you.
Okay, so very encouraging messages from Jovine, from Cecil, and from Irene. I'll try and make mine simple and short. But I was telling Sharon before this that I think mine is the easiest of the lot. But anyway, I'll still share it. So as I share, I want you to have two verses in mind. And they are all from Proverbs. The first says that in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. And then the second verse is a verse I like so much. If you forget anything I said today, don't forget that verse. It's Proverbs 22:29. And it says that, "Do you see a man that is skilled in his work? He will serve before kings and not mere men, not ordinary men. Do you see a man that is skilled in his work? He will serve before kings and not before mere men." So my career, I'll say, is the normal kind of career, like a child growing up. And I want to say that I have been helped greatly by my parents. Unfortunately, they've all passed. But my parents played a key role in my life, as every parent should, counseling, guiding, giving me opportunities to learn. And I guess like Cecil, like Irene, like Jovine, there's also something they wanted me to do. So they gave me the opportunities. The first thing I wanted to do growing up, I wanted to be a pilot. And so you can imagine, my father bought me all the books that I needed for piloting, to read, to get excited. In those days, he got me the opportunity to go into an aeroplane, to see it, and I really got excited. Along the line, I changed. I said I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. And he said, well, that is not too much of a shift. So the opportunities were also given. But one of the key things that came up was, if you wanted to do aeronautical engineering, then you had to do it outside Ghana. So financing or paying for it was going to be a challenge. So along the line, he got me to talk to quite a number of people. And I said, okay, I would do chemical engineering. So I actually entered the university to do chemical engineering. But before I went into the university, I spoke with a friend of my father who was a civil engineer, and he did a good job. He opened up engineering to me, and not just civil engineering, but he opened up engineering to me. And he said, Kofi, you know, in Ghana, the civil engineers are the ones who make it. Think of roads, think of houses, think of water, think of sanitation. They are all civil engineers. So that got me thinking. And of course, then the next important thing was getting a job. So he offered to do an internship in his office, which I took. But then, like I said, I went into the university to do chemical engineering. And in my very first semester, the first 2 weeks, I went into class, or I went for lectures, and I wasn't happy with what we were doing. It was the same things that I had done for my A levels then. Inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and physical chemistry. And I saw the labs and I was like, no, Kofi, this is not what you want to do. So I quickly left the class one afternoon, went into my room, and I told my roommates, Charlie, guys, this thing, it's not working. They said, wow, people wanted to do chemical, you took it, and now you don't want to do it. So I quickly looked for a friend of my father's who was a professor in the university. And he was a professor in pharmacy. I know God works in miraculous ways. He took me to the dean for engineering, who happened to be a civil engineer, and told him that, look, this man is doing chemical, he wants to change. He said, what grades did you get? I told him, and he said, oh, guy, you're borderline. There are other people who have done better than you, whom we should give the opportunity. To cut a long story short, I got in and I did civil. So I got in, I did civil. I did very well. I was the best student in design and all that. Very excited, came out of school. And then I got a good job with one of the leading consulting firms. I went to work there. But just when I started working, I was put on a project. And that project gave me a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, but it had to do with, there's a lot of finance involved. And I guess that was my closest to coming in contact with a financial statement or an annual report. And guys, trust me, when I opened it, I didn't know what it meant. I was so confused, but we were supposed to do some work around that. So as I went through it, and this was my fourth year after school in this consulting job, and I liked the office I worked in. My seniors were helpful, they would teach you. They gave me good opportunities very early. So this opportunity, as I asked questions about it, then someone told me, you have to do an MBA. You do an MBA, you get to know more about finance, you get to learn more about finance. So I looked for the opportunity and I did the MBA. From the MBA, I got the opportunity to do an internship. And at this point, I want to mention to us, or to all of us who are listening, and those who will listen later, that internships are very good. They help you find your way. They move you from the classroom to reality. And it also helps you to hone your skills and perhaps find out whether this is what you really want to do or not. So I did that. I came back to Ghana. And when I came back to Ghana, I got a very good job with one of the banks to work in their corporate finance department. And that was my next dream. In that back and forth with that annual report, I decided, no, I just didn't want to do finance. I wanted to do investment banking. When I told my dad was like, hey, guy, you've changed. Do you remember piloting? And my father was always proud to tell his friends. My father was a lawyer. Tell his friends, my son, the engineer. My son, the engineer. You know, he really liked the fact that I'd studied engineering. In fact, in a banter with one of his friends who was also a lawyer and whose daughter had studied law, he actually told his friend that, look, engineering is better than law. And I said, wow, for a lawyer to say this. And he said, no, it's an applied science. This man has studied engineering. So when I told him I wanted to do investment banking, he wasn't too sure. But he continued that role of getting me opportunities. And so my first job in investment banking was he connected me with a friend, somebody he had assisted when he was opening a bank. And then I got into investment banking. And I haven't looked back since. Now, in doing investment banking, I've been guided by a number of things, and I think I shared it. I shared it on Sunday. Whatever you do, I shared with a friend, or I think I posted on a platform this afternoon. He said, "Hey, these windy paths to a career, we are winding all," and I could understand him. But I shared this with him. There are 5 P's that have guided me in this, call it the truth behind my career, this windy path. It's been to pray, to plan, to have a purpose, to persist or persevere. And most, like Jovine mentioned, Irene, all I've mentioned, to have a passion for what you're doing, to enjoy what you're doing. And you know, I tell people every day that some are called to be pastors, some are called to be doctors, some are called to be, name it. I am called to be an investment banker. It's a job. I wake up every morning and I'm excited about what I do. I mean, I'm always looking for solutions, and I meet people every day who either have helped in an orientation or spoken to them, and they tell me that, wow, you spoke with so much passion. You seem to like what you do. And the truth is, I love what I do. I have taken another step. I'm still an investment banker, but I moved into entrepreneurship to start my own firm. And I realized that all the opportunities God had given me along the line, engineering, consulting, have just prepared me for this time. So if I should share anything with you, I want to end on this note. Firstly, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Whatever you want to do, talk to people, but of course, talk to the right people. Don't let people push you down. Just talk to people, look for advice, look for counsel, good counsel, godly counsel. And then the last one is what I shared earlier, Proverbs 22, verse 29. Do you see a man that is skilled in the work that he does? He will serve before kings. He will not serve before mere men. Your passion will push you to the forefront, and God will take you where he's destined you to be. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mr. Sampong. Thank you for that. Wow, that's been another interesting and winding journey. I'm gonna ask our 4 panelists to turn on their video feed so that we can begin a short discussion. In the meantime, if there are any other questions you have for them, please put them in the chat. Okay, hi. Okay, everybody's back. Here we go. So I think that we've all heard the truth about your careers in a very short time. I know that these are some very big stories and accounts that we've managed to sort of summarize for this purpose. But I think that if we're looking for things that have sort of showed up in almost everyone's journey, right? There are some common things that we can pick through the line. And I wanted us to discuss the topic of the role of parents, right? I know most of you are parents actually on the panel, and so it's a good perspective to also be able to share. I mean, what in so far, looking at the influence your parents had then, and then where you are now, and then you as a parent, how would you say that is supposed to be looked at today as young people trying to make career choices? You know, what do you think that they should, or how do you think they should look at the support from their parents or the influence of their parents in agreeing or choosing a certain career path? Gerald, let's have you first on that.
Okay, so for mine, it's a little challenging. So when it comes to the role of parents, I'm not a parent yet, but it's difficult, especially when they are in disagreement. When what you want does not align with what they want, it becomes very difficult. like I gave example with mine, my mom wasn't happy with the idea of her son being a baker, because her whole life, even before she had me, it's always been her dream to have a boy. And then aside having a boy who will be a doctor. It didn't help when the doctor that delivered me was married to her cousin. And I was named after him. You see, so then, and he was at my naming ceremony, and this is what he said: take everything about me except my temper. So this was deeply ingrained in her. I had to be a doctor by hook or crook, and she started well by, getting that idea into my head. I went through with it all right, but in the end, when I didn't agree and wanted to do something else, it became very difficult. And I can be very stubborn, and it's not good, but that part of me, I kind of like that part of me in this setting, because if I had given up on my dreams and listened to her, I'd have been a very miserable human being. I probably wouldn't have been the best of doctors. I would probably have been in so much trouble, because your mind has to be right in whatever you do. It's not just about what your parents want or the prestige or the money. It really isn't, because currently I can say that there are times that I make less money than I would have made as a doctor, but I'm not really looking at that. So you really have to, as Mr. Sampon said, you need to persevere. You need to keep going, persist. It may come off as you being disrespectful to your parents, but so far as you are not saying anything disrespectful and you're just doing what you enjoy, you need to, communication too is important. You need to communicate to them that, look, this is what I really want to do. And as much as you want me to do this, it's what you want, not what I want. And like also Mr. Sampon said, we need to talk to people and always talk to the right person. I was made to talk to people, but they were all doctors. I never got to talk to anyone who was an entrepreneur or anyone who actually did anything aside what they went to school for. So they were all telling me, do this, and they were all in line of doctors. I wanted someone who would tell me something different, somebody who was in my shoes. I never got that, but eventually growing up, I met people, and as much as it may sound bad, they were like, look, your parents, their one foot is in the grave. You do what they want, eventually they'll pass away. Ask yourself, how are you going to feel doing something they wanted when they are not around? That really hit me, and that was my turning point. So as much as it's difficult, especially when they don't agree, both parents don't agree, you need to put your foot down, communicate your feelings, make them understand. It wasn't up until, well, now my mom is fine, but it wasn't up until, I made her realize that me taking care of her now she doesn't work anymore. She's unable to bake because of her back. But I made her understand that me taking of you now is because of this baking. One time I went to her place and I was having a hard time getting a job as a doctor because I just finished. But I was baking then, and she was sick and she needed money and everything. So I went there and she was telling me about how she has an order, but she doesn't have enough money to sort it out. So she wanted to pre-finance it. And I was like, no problem. So she asked me for money. At that time, if I wasn't baking, there was no way I could have gotten that money for her. So when I gave her the money and I was like, do you know where this money is coming from? And she was like, no. And I was like, I just got an order today and the person came to pay me this morning before I left for work. That was when she understood that, oh, okay, my son is not wasting money. He's actually doing something good. Yeah. You get it? Yeah. Even after that, she still wasn't too happy, but it's taking time, It's been rough, but it takes time, and you need to stay strong. So for parents, it can be very, very challenging.
So Jovine, let me come to you, because in your account, it seemed like as much as there was shock and concern, it was a little more supportive.
Yes. Yeah. So the background part I didn't say, my dad was a dentist. So there was this expectation that I was going to be a dentist and I wanted to be, but after O level and not doing so well in my science classes, that kind of got put on hold. And I think that for me, I had a positive experience in terms of that big switch where it would have been like the worst thing. But I think there were also expectations from people around, like the aunties, the uncles, to hear that you switched. And so just even making a case for the both the negative and positive, our parents sometimes I think in our world, we put identity on what we do and what we have and what others say about us. And so in those cases, it can be so easy to put everything on what we do. And unfortunately, because of that image, parents can put on what will come in the way of you fulfilling your purpose. I think my mother is such a big believer in affirming women into their roles. So much to that she was just happy that I was pursuing a degree. That was what she was really excited about, because in her generation, women were not put into university because they thought women will end up having children and it'll be a waste of money anyway. And so I think in that case, I was blessed with her opinion of the fact that you just go and study and get a degree. And so in that light, I was blessed. I was relieved that I think it was God's grace to me. I usually she would have reacted, but I think it was God's grace to me in affirming that this was the way to go. I will say that sometimes it depends on the stage of life you're making a decision. Sometimes when you've just finished university and you're trying to figure out life, there are guides on the way. Whether they're always right is the question, but there's some wisdom sometimes that comes with parents who know you and have watched you grow up and may suggest things that you should start with. Now, it may stifle your growth later, but sometimes it's the only wisdom that you have to take your immediate step. So I would tell people that don't always write off what your parents tell you. Sometimes take it because there's some grain of wisdom. There's a proverb in the Ewe language that just says that the beard is not older than the eyebrow. And so I think in a certain way, sometimes, so I want to say sometimes parents have their best interest for you. And so you, as a follower of Jesus, you sift the wisdom that is given to you to start off. Now, sometimes you may have a calling in your heart, but it doesn't mean that it's always immediate. I think sometimes I wonder, like with all our stories, I wonder who would we be if we didn't get certain experiences to grow us into our next step. So that's just at least my version. I was so blessed that the picture came from the external things where people would say, are you sure?
Yeah. Okay, so Irene, I mean, for you, I think in your account, what your father proposed actually turned out to be a better solution for you, right? So yes. in that case, are you on the listen to what your parents are saying and go with it? Or have you, as a parent yourself now, are you in a position to rather allow your children and not necessarily have a say, but just be there to guide?
Okay, yes and no. Why do I say yes and no? Because probably being a parent now, I tend to now understand what parents really do feel when their children are taking some decisions. Okay, and I think Kofi said that certain times in the economics of things, you really want to find out what will put money on the table, okay, or what will put breakfast or food on the table. There are certain times when they want to go along some line, you know very well that it's not the best. Yeah. So I believe parents are really, we just guide, we advise. Our God-given role is just to be, yes, fathers and mothers guiding and yes, giving that direction that is needed. Yeah. But what I always say, which I think most parents want to, is to give your best at anything or everything you find your hands to do. Thank God for Kofi's verse that he chose. And I think our first speaker said it. Whatever your hands find to do. You know, for me, the problem I have is the dreamers who would just have all the big talk dream and nothing is in action, or things that would drive the dream into implementation, which is the hard work that's not followed. And that, yes, it is wonderful. I know how it is like. My daughter really, really likes dancing. And we've had that conversation a number of times. And now it's really making me think aloud that, okay, how would this be used? How would it makes us also think and pray about it. But I believe that no matter what it is, you have to be very skillful. Whether it's education, that passion, if you say you have passion, it should transcend into some action. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes you so marketable that they choose you over another person. You choose Cecil's cake because it's excellent. You understand? But then I want to bake, and I'll put in that hard work. You understand? That goes along with that passion. Where would it lead you? I guess that's where parents really want to make sure that, yes, there's that desire to want to do software, to be into computing, to do into all those things. But where is the drive? Where is the drive that turns into real hard work of gaining skill? Skill that is next to none, so that you be paid. I think that's where parents really are.
That's the position you're coming from. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Irene. So let me pivot onto this part of the conversation. Kofi, for you, you had talked about this from the beginning. It seemed like you kind of weren't sure it is something you wanted to do. This is at the university level of civil before you went into civil engineering, right? And I did wonder because yes, everybody talked about a trend that has been everyone's conversation has been about happiness. You know, what makes me happy? What makes me happy? Then there's what fulfills me. What makes me happy? What fulfills me? For you, Kofi, that moment of I don't want to do chemical. I want to do civil, and you know I want to do this. Was it? You mentioned yes, pray, plan, purpose. Was it? Did you feel like there was a purpose calling in that change, or you were not happy with it, so you wanted to try something else, or you found something else that was going to make you happier?
Okay, so you know, I mean, I think others have shared it, but also, I mean, the various subjects you do give you an idea of your strengths. Okay, so again, in my time, those were the O-level and A-level days, and then Jovin also mentioned the fact that there were limited opportunities. So at a point, you were just happy to get into the university. Because staying at home doing nothing was another challenge. That could also cause depression, like Cecil mentioned. That could also cause you depression, just sitting at home and people asking you, hey, your friends are gone, or what are you doing here? It wasn't a conversation I wanted to have. So what I did was I put my foot in the doorway. I went to the university. Because if you want to change, let's face it, sometimes it's easier to change from within than to change from without.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I got into the class, when I started lectures, every passing day made me realize that this wasn't the place for me.
Okay.
Maybe I could have done what Cecil did and done chemical engineering and finished. My wife has a friend who did I forgot exactly the course she did, but she always wanted to do medicine. She finished her course and she's gone back, done medicine, and now she's a doctor. So there her passion has pushed her. She's gone through her first degree, and I think her first degree was in the arts. By her determination to do medicine, she's gone for it, and that's what's made her happy. So I think it's about what you want to do, but sometimes you should also weigh your opportunities, the time you find yourself in. I don't think it's a good idea just to sit at home and say, this is what I want to do. And if I don't get it, I'm not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a bit scary. And on this side of the world, our opportunities are not those as these days is improved,
Yeah.
but they are not as diverse as you find in the Western world.
Yeah.
And it's gotten better, but in our day, in my time, you had to do engineering, you had to do medicine, you had to do law. When you weren't doing any of those things, the opportunities were slimmer. So giving the opportunity, I'll be very honest with you. If I didn't get civil, I would have gone back, put my tail between my legs, and done my chemical.
Yeah.
But I persisted. I stuck to people, and that's the other point. I think our parents then and even now, parents want the best for you. They want the best for you, and sometimes they might not know. I mean, they are from a different generation. And I'll give you another example. They're from a different generation. So all they want is for their children to be okay.
Yeah.
Not to be a misfit, not to be a failure. And in that process, they might push you. Then there are some parents too who just want you to toe their line, follow their line. I'm a doctor, I have a hospital, who is going to run it? If you don't do it, all this investment has gone to waste.
Yeah.
We'll then have to let this man's son, his son has studied medicine. If you don't do it, he's going to run the hospital and everything of mine is going to go there. So those are tough for the parents as well. But I think communication, talking, and prayer, it will make things easier. Now, the example I have to share has to do with my own son, my first boy. The children today find themselves in an environment where there's a lot of information. But one thing my son has shown me, and I'm very proud of him for that, is that he knew very early what he wanted to do.
Okay.
So even on the day that he was graduating from JSS, and where they were doing their speech and prize giving day, just after school, when he came home, he had been speaking to us, particularly to his mom, and he said he wanted to do programming. So he started doing Python. So that was the first time I heard about it. But he knew what he wanted to do. So the day he was going for his speech and prize giving day, he was also graduating from a Python class. To my shock, after his O levels, he said he wanted to do IT A level. I never knew you could do IT at A levels, huh? But we listened to him, we found out, we researched, and he was correct. Now, when we went to the school to be interviewed, they asked a couple of questions. Have you done coding before? Are you familiar with the artificial intelligence? Have you been doing programming? Excitedly, he said yes, yes, yes. And I knew he had been doing those things. So it's also for us as young people, if we find ourselves as kids, that we also prove to our parents that we're not just looking for an easy way out, but we've also researched and we found out. And I guess it also makes it easier for the parents to take the decision and also pay for you.
Yeah.
So there's a balancing act.
Yes.
There's a balancing act. So I don't think our parents don't just like our difficult, but they are looking for the best for us, albeit sometimes it is a wrong choice.
Yeah. Sure. So I think the conversation, one of the other very common things we've all had in everyone's story is this idea of being happy with what you are doing. And I think that in our culture, in our Ghanaian culture, we have this do what has to be done, as opposed to what makes you happy. What makes you happy sounds like a very fickle way. If you've grown up in Ghana, it's like, oh, what about what makes you happy? It's what makes us paying the bills, But there are so many people, young and older, who are unhappy with their jobs. They are paid well, but they're unhappy. And I'm glad that Cecil mentioned, for his sanity. And I think that we often neglect the mental health part of the choices that we make and the choices that we live in, and it's interesting because we seem to miss that part of it. And I do wonder, Irene, when you were talking about your story, you said that you were unsettled. There was an unsettling. Was it unhappiness, or when you say unsettled, was it like anytime you are promoted but you are not happy, or you are just not comfortable? Like what do we look out for to know that you are not happy in this?
Okay, I think I will go for not being comfortable.
Okay.
I think I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't at ease, if I should put it that way.
Okay.
I wasn't at ease. The feeling in the two places I had worked was totally different. And so there were times that I couldn't really pinpoint myself to what was happening. But you know how you feel so unsettled about things. So I really went to God in prayer about it. I'm glad others have mentioned prayer, and was wondering why. And I think looking back, it was God just trying to make me look outside than stay in there, yes, and telling myself that I could grow my career. I really feel that. So I had a board member coming up to me at a board meeting at our headquarters in Lome with all the big guys there. I got the chance of having board meetings with the new CEO, Ade Ayini, the one from Citibank. So I was preparing, for my presentation, and normally I stayed through it. And the guy just walked up to me that, but you can do better elsewhere. You think this place is the only place you can be? I'm like, this is a board meeting of a bank. So I was surprised he walked up to me to say those things. But that's unsettling. I can say that more of not being comfortable, more of, I think there's something missing, if I should put it that way. I think there was something missing that I couldn't really pinpoint. And I like what the phrase between happy. I think that yes, we the older ones, really when we're growing up, you dare not go say that you want to be what happy. It is what has to be done. You understand? And yes, I grew up in that environment. I was told that in a number of times. But thankfully, my father were those few revolutionaries who would seek your advice as a child.
Okay.
Which was okay. So that was when I realized that, there could be this other place. But what I have realized is the drive and the passion really comes along with what you enjoy doing. When you have to wake up at 9, or when you have to do something, it is something that you really enjoy and you find yourself doing it with all your might. You know, God says that we should love Him with all our mind, soul, spirit, and body. And certain times, this kind of push, you only get it when you are really, really in for it. And you want to go for it. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jovin, for you, I think it was more of answering a call, right? But then, so it means that it was not as much happiness as it was fulfillment.
It still changed to happiness in a way.
Yeah, because once you are fulfilled, you are happy.
You're happy. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And so sometimes I know it feels like, I have to go into ministry to find my fulfillment. No, I think it can be separated, but it can also all be together. And I think that's where, when you clarify certain things like what's my career, what's my profession, what's my occupation, and what's my vocation, and all of those things are very, very different. Like occupation is just getting you money on the table. A career is a series of jobs you do in your lifetime to pursue something or your calling, and a profession is those kinds of skill sets that, like people like doctors, lawyers, there's certain kind of professional skill sets that you're doing even in your career. And the word vocation means to call, or even to hear the voice of God. And so I think when you begin to understand what the world offers, understand yourself even more, I think all those things meet. There's a guy named, I think, Frederick Bushner, who says that, the place God calls you is the place where your deep gladness and the world's hunger meet. And so I think that's what happened for me. At that time, it felt like a sacrifice. I wouldn't say that it wasn't costly. It was a very costly decision. But there was still joy in it. And there was joy in it because for me, I think because I had found the calling of hospitality already, it just looked different in ministry. So I love to cook. I love to make people feel at ease. And I still use the same mode to for ministry. I still have students in my home. I still fed them. I still did those things. And so that it still brought joy in the long run. And so I want to say something about process and time, because we're all talking about joy and finding joy, but it didn't happen in the snap. It happened over time. And that's sometimes reality has to be our best friend, that it's real, that in that moment I said yes to the big switch. I wouldn't have told you I was happy at all.
Right.
But years later, when I look back, it was the path to joy.
Right.
And because I was doing it with God. And so I think even if you still find things that you enjoy, there's still ways that you have to grow in yourself, the skills you need to get, and all of those things to discovering joy. So it's almost like a process of discovering joy. And maybe for having walked with many young people in this stage of life, in figuring out, is it joyful? Because sometimes work is hard. You're in the real work environment of broken people. So they bring their issues to work, even though you might enjoy your work. The world will be better without people in it, but unfortunately there's people in it that make it complex. And so in all of this, I think it's always good to figure out what I think I always tell people there's always questions that you need to think and process well in order to get to your place of growth. And so questions like, what is my intentional passion God has planted in me? What am I good at? What are things that people say I'm good at? Because sometimes if you have insecurity issues, you probably won't even think you're good at anything. And so how are people calling out God's gifts in you? How are they seeing the things that they see and they say, oh, you do, whenever you do this well, or, oh, when you talk to elderly people, you realize you make them feel at ease. Have you considered a job in creating a space for the aging, and so paying attention to what people are saying. Also, it's almost like not just you responsible for your joy, but how are people calling joy out of you as well?
Wow, great. I mean, I think that you said something, and for you, it was a journey to joy, but Cecil, it looks like you made the switch and you became happy. Was that what happened? Yeah, clearly, right?
Yes.
That was just like, that's all you needed.
Yeah, because for me, it wasn't that easy though, because I had been working for I finished school in 2013, and that was when I started, 2012, and I started working in 2013.
Okay.
And for 5 years, I was doing baking alongside work. Okay. And I had 5 years to actually realize that this was, I knew it made me happy. You get it? But I couldn't just stop, okay, it makes me happy, so fine. After a year, I'll stop. No. Yeah. I went along with it, nurtured it for 5 years. And it was in 2018, that was when I realized that, no, I can't keep doing this. And a friend told me, she's a big time caterer. She's called Fiona Food. And she told me, when I met her, she was like, you stop doctor and you start baking. And we just laughed about it. And then she goes on to say, you cannot serve two masters. Something has to give. And I felt, oh, come on, I can do it. I can do the two. Because at that time I was doing it. And everybody kept asking, hey, doctor, how are you able to do the two? And I kind of felt proud because I was able to. And I always said, oh, I make time. Oh, I make time. Yeah. But I make time. 5 years down, I make time wasn't the best answer anymore because I was lacking sleep and I was depressed. Yeah. So making time wasn't the best answer anymore. That was when I realized that, look, something really has to give. And for me, the moment I quit and I just said, I'm going full time, it was like I was under a mountain and all of a sudden that mountain had been taken away. I was liberated. Yeah. And it felt really, really good. Before I quit, I always had this fear of the same fear my wife had, that what if things don't go well? What if you don't get clients? What if people stop buying cake? My mom would be like, nowadays people don't have money and people get tired of these things, these sweet things. But then all those things were at the back of my head. And I was like, what if these things actually happen? I was like, nah, it's been 5 years. And so far, I just keep growing. So if I'm giving 50% and I've come this far, imagine what 100% would do.
Yeah.
So I thought, plus it wouldn't hurt to test the waters. If it doesn't work, I can always go back.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me give it a try. And the moment I quit, all those fears disappeared. Like I did not fear failure. I did not fear not getting clients, because then I knew that this actually is what I want. Like I don't know how to describe the feeling. I don't think words can describe it. Like you just feel liberated.
Yeah. How did you know? You've said it a few times, but how did you know you were depressed? What showed you were depressed by the career path you were on?
Well, that was based off what we learned in school in psychology. So right. I look back and I assessed myself. I was like, how is it affecting my social life? Being sad and being depressed are two different things. You can be sad and it may not necessarily affect your social life. You can be sad and you deal with it, and you can eat, you can sleep, you can, socialize normally. But for me, it was affecting everything. It was affecting work. I was forgetful. I wasn't sleeping. I was absent-minded. I go home and there's this anhedonic, meaning no feelings for joy. You don't enjoy doing anything at all. And when we learned about that hedonism in school, I really could relate, because I always told myself that I would always want to do something that brings me joy. And I always related to hedonism, like that feeling of joy, wanting to do things that make you happy. So the moment I started feeling unhappy constantly over a period, not just weeks, but months, and then I realized that I go to work and I'm talking to a patient, but my mind is not there. I go home and I can stay up till dawn before I fall asleep. I can wake up in the morning and I've had only one meal and I don't feel like eating. And I can be watching a movie and the movie will end. I don't even know what I watched. That was when I saw that depression was setting in. And
it's interesting.
I had to do something.
Life is really a paradox. The very thing that was depressing you is what revealed to you were being depressed.
Yes.
It's crazy. Life is a crazy paradox. Anyway, okay. So we have some questions from our audience, okay? And this one is to Jovine. The person says that you spoke about raising funds for your mission work. Have you managed this in a foreign country? How have you managed this in a foreign country? Are you paid for being a missionary? If not, how do you take care of yourself?
Great question. Yes, it was not easy. Most of the time with the missions organization I work for, it's a large organization. So it's not like a random, storefront organization. So our national headquarters is in Wisconsin. We have about almost 1,600 staff all over the country. And so there's structure and setup. And so there's a budget made for you, and the budget includes your salary, your ministry expenses, health insurance, all those things. And most of the time when you're hired, a key part of your fundraising is that you have to have a good network of people. And compared to my other colleagues, I had very minimal. The base number you should come in with is at least listing over 150 people that you knew well that could support your ministry. And I didn't have that. I think I had only 50 people on my list. But the person hiring me really felt that this was where I was supposed to be. So he took a risk of testing it out for a year to see if I was able to raise the money. And I had no idea how. So you start with the immediate people, but people believed in my calling, that I had all these people helping me, introducing me to their networks. And so sometimes people think, oh, you raise money and that's it. No, but it's an annual thing. So it's every year you hit your budget, you start all over again. But over time, you also, the people that you minister to, we have a network of, probably over 1 million plus students who've gone through our ministry over the years. And so if you have alumni, they all support the ministry because they know what they got out of it. So I've had alumni, friends, family who've come alongside me. And I always tell people my story is a miracle story of, I think if anything, it was proof of the fact that God was saying, this is what I want you to do. I have to trust him daily for my daily bread. And I'm appreciative for organization also making sure that you want to make sure that you're taken care of. And so there's this older generation of who were involved in ministry in the 40s and who have loved me also well, like parents, and would make sure I'm doing okay and all of that. And I'm grateful for the network of seeing the vision over 18 years now of his provision.
He sure does provide. Thank you. Okay, so we have a question here for the doctor. She says that you spoke about switching to keep your sanity. That's profound. What will have happened if you had stayed and worked as a doctor? I mean, I think that's a very intense question. But truthfully, I mean, obviously, you've described what that depression was like. Did you ever play forward, not play back, but play forward and say, if I continue like this, this may happen?
So let me give an example. It actually happened. Almost happened. So I had a patient, and she was, let's say, a friend. I mean, a patient that comes, she liked me and everything, and I took care of her and everything. The problem she came with is what I addressed. So she leaves my consulting room, and she did a lab test, and I looked at the lab test, right, and I saw what I thought I saw. Mm-hmm. Now this woman leaves, and then my other colleague, I don't know, somehow someone sees her lab. Okay, yes, she went to a different doctor after seeing me because then my queue was long. So then the doctor sees her lab, and she was like, wait a minute, your HP is low. Your blood level is low. And it was very low. It was 4. Ideally, it's supposed to be at least 10. Mm-hmm. So she sees it, and she was like, who saw you earlier? So she told her, and she was like, oh, okay. So later, this doctor calls me and was like, Doc, this patient came to me after seeing you, and we noticed that her HP was very low. Mm-hmm. How come you missed it? Because, I mean, this hasn't happened before, so there's probably something wrong. But like, how come you missed it? And that I should be careful next time, because if it wasn't for the fact that the patient said, oh, I'm her friend, mm-hmm. this could have escalated to something, really bad if something happened to her when she went home. So that was when I was like, no, this can't happen again. Yeah. And it all boiled down to the fact that absent-mindedness, and I would admit that I was in that phase of being absent-minded. So imagine if I was managing an emergency, and I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. You get it? Crazy. And it was an obvious mistake. Yeah. Then my career would have gone down the drain. Yeah. So I told myself that I need to choose one. Mm. I can't, like I said, my friend said, you can't serve two masters. So you have doctor here, you have baking here. Baking makes you happy, this doesn't. You are making mistakes with this one, and you aren't making mistakes with this one, So choose wisely, And it wasn't a difficult decision, because then, I'll be letting my mom down, I'll be letting my dad down. Yeah. Everybody thinks that, doctor is better than being a baker. It was a dilemma, and I really had to choose. And I felt me not being a doctor would save more lives than actually doing it.
Doing that, yeah.
And that's what made me stop.
Yeah.
Because if I had continued, I really don't know what I would have done to myself, but at least I know what I would have done to other patients.
Someone else, yeah. Wow, you're actually still thinking like a doctor. Another question is, do you think your being a doctor makes you a better baker? Do you apply your medical skills to baking?
Not necessarily being a doctor, but being a science student. If I hadn't gone into science because of doctor or aerospace engineering, I
Okay.
wouldn't have been a better baker, because it is the science that has made me what I am today. I
Okay.
love chemistry.
Okay.
I love math.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I go to computer science, I was still science, but computer science takes away chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would have still done some chemistry with engineering.
Mm-hmm.
You get it? So
Okay.
yes, so it was the need to be a doctor that made me move towards chemistry and pursue science even further.
Yeah.
And whilst in medical school, I didn't just study medicine. I studied nutrition. You get it?
Yeah.
I studied
Yeah.
a lot about science related
Okay.
to food and human beings.
Okay.
You get it? So I get to apply it now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somewhere in 2015 to 2016, I was taken to a cocoa farm in Koforidua,
Okay.
and I discovered chocolate and I discovered cocoa beans. And during that period, I actually delved into making chocolate from the cocoa beans. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have that science background.
Yeah.
So, like Mr. Sampon said, actually it runs through all the stories we've heard, that where we start from makes us what we are now.
Exactly. It's not wasted.
Yeah. It's not wasted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not wasted.
You are baking scientifically. Okay, so then, doctor, tell us, we are online. Tell us once and for all, is cake good for us or not?
If I say it's good, I'll definitely say it's good for you, because I would want you to patronize me. but I get where you're coming from. But there's nothing like good or bad food. It's how you eat it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Answered very scientifically. Thank you. Irene, I have a question for you. It says that for a job you applied for and was not successful years back, what made you reapply?
That is a question I always ask myself. But let me tell you the story behind it. So I told my husband, I don't understand these people. I applied to them 2014. I didn't even hear from them. Why are they asking me to come again? Or why are they putting this job out on the market? Then my husband goes like, why are you asking all these questions? You probably will not know it till you get in there. Or he passed that comment like, so seriously, you are being what? You are just trying to play God or know things before then. It's okay, just put in the application. But the story has it then. That's why I say that sometimes God directs our path.
Yeah.
The story has it that during that time, the person that was taken faced the fiercest or the most difficult board membership such that in the long run he had to go. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So the timing for me was so divine and ordained, because at that time when I went in, they told me that there were about 3 board members who had come in to do, they had an agenda. So whoever was there, so sad. I mean, why this, why that, audit here, audit there. No, we are not satisfied. No. And then he had to go. Yeah. And so just under 3 years and a few months, we had to put in an advert for the same position.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So there's a question for the doctor. Challenging your parents is easier when you are older. How do you manage this as a teenager or a younger person? Sorry, you're muted. You're muted. Can you unmute first? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's difficult because I challenged them when I was younger, and all I got was lashes. But I would say that as a teenager, it's I don't know what you're facing right now, but sometimes it's good to listen to them.
Okay.
You know, right now it's good to listen to them. It's very easy to think that you know what you want and they don't understand you, but they may not understand you per se, but they understand the situation.
Yeah.
If whatever it is, you are in school, you are studying whatever course, whatever you are studying. I don't know if you're an SS yet or not, but just keep doing what you want to do. If it's a science you want to do, just go ahead. If it's a business you want to go and learn in SS, or it's whatever you want to learn and you're already in SS and want to do that in university, just keep doing what you want to do. But at this age, communicate to your parents every single thing you want in your life. They need to understand you. If you don't say it, and then one day you just get up and then you just decide to do whatever, I mean, they are human beings. They'll be confused. They're like, what is this person doing? And they will look out for you.
Yeah.
The best way they think they can.
Yeah.
So if they think what you are doing is not the best to them, they will guide you in a path where they feel is better. But you see, you need to let them understand, because they are from a different generation and you are from a different generation. You get it. My mom expected me to be a gynecologist. While I was in medical school, I told her no. I wanted to be, earlier on, I was like cardiothoracic surgeon. I changed from cardiothoracic surgeon to ophthalmologist. I changed from ophthalmologist to sports and nutrition. That was when the food started getting in. Right now, if you ask me what I'll do if I went back to medicine, I'll be a clinical psychologist.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So it changes. So you need to always let them know. My mom kept saying, and you every day are changing your mind. You get it. But my dad understood, because, you'll definitely change your mind, but always communicate with them. Don't rebel. I mean, I rebelled and I know how it was. Don't rebel. Rebellion, when you rebel, it's only going to make things worse, because they would also like to put their foot down. Typical African parents see that. They see rebellious children as respectful. You get it? And it's only going to get into trouble. So, I mean, just listen. While you're listening, if whatever you love to do, you can do it alongside whatever it is.
Okay.
If it gets to the point where you have to make a decision, then you reason it out. That's how I related with my dad. We reason things out.
Yeah.
He said, okay, this is what you said you want. Tell me why you want it, pros and cons. I mean, we did advantages and disadvantages for a reason in school. Get it down. Tell him that, okay, I want to do this because these are the advantages. These are the disadvantages. He will look at it and say, okay, the advantages outweigh disadvantages. A reasonable parent would not say no to something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. So do listen to them, but, do what you want alongside.
Okay.
They want, parents like hardworking children. They want to see that you are putting in the work. So if you say, I want to be an artist, and you don't give them any reason to think that you want to be an artist. They'll be like, but you say you want to be an artist, there's nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
You get it? They need to see.
Yeah.
You get it? My mom and dad only understood what I was doing when they saw what I was doing.
Yeah.
It got to a point my dad went to tell me, hey, Inga, and that he's seen some things I do and like he's amazed. Get it? Even before I started baking, I delved into computers. And each time my dad had my older brother fix his computer for him. But then he'll come and call me later and be like, oh, Charlie, I need my computer fixed because it keeps coming. The problem keeps coming. And one day he called me and was like, but you went to do medicine in school. How come anytime you fix my computer, the problem doesn't recur? But when your brother comes, the problem still comes. You get it?
Yeah.
Before that, he always complained that I was sitting behind the computer too much. He never understood. But once I showed him what I was doing and the benefits, he started complaining. Yeah. So they need to see.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's listen to our parents. Let's communicate with them what we want. And let's also reason.
And show them proof.
Yes. Let's reason with them and then let's show them. Okay. Thank you.
And Sharon,
yes,
just to jump in, I also want to tell the person about perseverance. Personally, I didn't mind really going back. If it's something that you like doing or you want, or a company that you want, and they've placed it, I just jumped, this is another chance. I was just asking myself why. And that was the, but not that I didn't want to. Perseverance helps. If it's really something you want, it doesn't matter if they turn you down 3-4 times. When we're doing our accounting course, it was like, oh, it doesn't matter. When you go, you feel, just get up again before you realize you've qualified as an accountant. So just keep at it and do what you have to do. Yeah, persevere.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sample, you are a father. What is the best way to challenge you?
What's the best way
to challenge you? You have a child who wants to do something that you are not on board with. I'm asking you that from a father's perspective, what will be the best way to challenge you?
Wow. I think firstly, I think firstly, I want to see you at least serious and successful what you do. I find it difficult if you just sit at home doing nothing.
Okay.
And I think what we were told when we were young applies now. You get yourself qualified, or you get yourself through what you're doing, and the other opportunities will open up as you focus.
Okay.
So the first thing I would expect is that you don't quit. You don't quit at what you're doing. You finish it. It's never wasted.
Yeah.
It's never wasted. Then like in the example I gave about my son, I mean, he just challenged us. I mean, he's that good. He's that good with computers. He's that good with programming. When he went for the interview in the school, half the things they said I didn't understand. I'm not that tech savvy. Once the thing works for me and I'm using it, I'm okay. What happens in the background, I don't want to know. But when he spoke with the principal in the school, I mean, the principal was like, your boy is ready. And many of the things he had done on his own. So I guess like Cecil said, if you prove it to your parents, you show. Even the diehards, the difficult ones, they will yield. And on the side, like we've said, you should pray. Because like we all mentioned, when I talk about prayer, yes, if you can do the long travailing prayer, God bless you. But prayer sometimes can be that simple where you just tell God your frustrations. There's no point being macho before God and being careful about what you say to him. He's not going to get mad at you. Just tell him about your frustration. Tell him about your fears. Tell him about your desires, the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And trust me, it works. Yeah. There will be the time where you perhaps have to fast and pray and get into travailing prayer. Do that. Yeah. But the simple telling God how you feel, this is not where I want to be. I really wish I could do this. And as you talk to me, you also be attentive to what he has for you. That's what I also said, that in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. If that's what you want to do, also talk to people, talk to those who are in the industry. Yeah. And find out. For instance, I talked to my colleague in the office, and we both have something in common. She says her son wants to be a footballer. And I tell my son, the number of people, when you see the footballers in the Premiership, there are a million, or perhaps even there's a larger number who wanted to get there. There are many disappointed Ronaldos. So if you say you want to be there, find out how Ronaldo gets to be what he is. I hear when everybody has gone, training is over, he stays on to practice. He takes shots. He has all kinds of barricades to try. So if you want to be a footballer, it's not like, I'm skillful, I can flip the ball. Aside the talent, there's the hard work, there's the perseverance, there's the persistence.
Yeah.
So as a parent, I want to see those things. Okay. But I think I've also learned that you should also help the child. You should talk to them. These days, children don't want to talk. They want to be behind their computers. So you should try and get them to talk. And again, as a parent, I think you shouldn't be too demanding and always in their face. What I've learned from my children is that sometimes when we also insist, they also would rebel.
They persevere.
As a parent, you don't want your child all messed up and worried.
Yeah.
You also
When you insist, they resist.
yeah. So you learn their language. It's easier. Yeah, it was easier. Like I really said, it was easier for our parents. Do and you do. You have no choice. In our times, we've got to dialogue. We've got to dialogue. But for those who are having parents who are resisting them, also know that fine, if you rebel, it's your life being wasted. So you also try and understand your parents. And if they are not coming around, pray about it. Sometimes you can talk to a friend of theirs to speak to you. Like I said, in the case of my dad always got me people. Okay, you say you want to switch from civil. He got me a friend who was a civil engineer to speak to me. That friend got me the opportunity to do an internship. When I said I wanted to move from what do you call it, engineering into finance, he got me a banker to talk to. He sometimes even got articles and books for me to read. So I think we just need to communicate and find middle ground. But for us as children or as children, let's also try and understand the parents. The parent doesn't want you to fail. Parents find it difficult when their children fail. You don't want to have children who have failed. So those are some of the fears the parents go through.
Yeah.
So you also as a child, try and reach out to them. Cecil mentioned communication. When you talk a lot to them, when you are communicating, some of these things don't come as a shock to them. But when you keep to yourself, it's like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
This wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
We had your plan to become a doctor sorted out long ago. And now you say you want to be a baker. Even being a baker doesn't sound snazzy. You want to be a baker, but you need to talk to them and also we have to communicate. We have to communicate. And trust me, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. There is safety.
Thank you. Okay, I think Jovin, I have another question for you here. It says that what advice do you give to students who come from non-Christian homes and give their lives to Christ? How can they manage and relate to your non-Christian family members?
Yeah, it's always a tough one where sometimes disowning is a big cost to public honoring family. I think it's kind of a tension of, I think we ask them to pray, but when I'm saying pray, like also to listen to the voice of God, because listening to God is a part of prayer. And so we teach them how to honor their parents too. But we also teach them how to honor God. And most of the time, if you're blessed and graced, both kind of connect, but sometimes it's not always an easy decision when you have to go away from probably what your non-Christian parents are doing. And so I think a lot of what my other friends have shared about communication, wisdom, all of those things are great wisdom for how to, at least for how I tell them to walk their walk. And I think when you are hearing the voice of God, he will, even though it'll be hard, because I have had some students who maybe studied something, they only did it to please the parents. But then after they became Christian, they realized their passion. Maybe, so for example, maybe people realizing their passion for the homeless and the poor and wanted to do social work instead of being this engineer that maybe their parents. And so it was very difficult. The parents were angry, they were mad. I mean, they wouldn't talk to them, but they wanted to pursue that. So they kept open communication, even though the parents were still not happy. But over time, your fruit tells your work. And so as the people showed their work, their parents maybe still wasn't so happy, but at least the relationship was repaired. So I teach them to honor their parents, but honor God too, and which boils down to the whole theology of work. In Genesis 2:15, when God gave the people work, that word work means avodah, it means work, it means worship, it means service. And so teaching them how to have integrated faith of how does my work be worship unto God, but also be honoring to my neighbor, which includes your parent. And so being able to see the theology of work and honor God and honor family. Sometimes, I mean, you saw Jesus when he was working, sometimes he would say, they're also my brothers and sisters just as this. And it was a hard saying when they say, your mother and your friends your family is waiting for you. And it was such a costly thing. I remember an international student who was studying the Bible for the first time came across that verse and could not sleep for days because it was a sudden shock that, there may be some decisions I may have to take because of seeing Jesus, take hard decisions. But I watched them take some bold decisions, and God honored that and repaired their relationship with family. So
great. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have any more questions from our audience. You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. I think we have a few more minutes online, and then we can call it a day. I don't know if there are any more questions. There was one interesting question that Cecil answered, but I know many more people are probably thinking. So Cecil, the big question for you tonight, what do you prefer to be referred to as? The doctor, the baker, or both? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, Cecil. Yeah.
I never really thought about it. For a long time, when I switched to baking, and even when I was a doctor was baking, like many people didn't even know who I was. Like I prefer to hide and do what I needed to do. But like when I do think about it, I really don't mind. Doctor, baker, I think lately I write baker more than I write doctor. I mean, at first when I was filling forms, I write doctor, but now I write doctor/baker.
I mean, putting the doctor
So
will make a demand on you. Anywhere you write doctor, you put a demand on yourself.
Yes, I because especially during the COVID time, because people knew I was a doctor, they would prefer coming to buy the cake from the doctor because
you are an essential worker.
He was a doctor.
What's the name of your bakery?
Coco Snob.
Coco Snob. Okay. All right. Okay. So guys, then it's time to order from Coco Snob. It's done by a doctor. Safest you can get out there. Does anyone have another question? And then we'll thank our panelists for tonight. Are there any more questions? Are there any more questions?
I thought I saw Ray Church.
Yes,
I don't know whether
so too. I saw a hand. I saw a hand up, but it's gone. I don't know.
That was me.
Oh yes. Okay. Hi, Reverend.
But I was glad to be quiet and eat some bread from Coco Snob. I've heard I heard a number of the contributions, but my opinion, I see them as more reactionary. But I have taught many people, at least going into marriage, to pray long before, way ahead. We prayed about all these, the children will have, and we didn't know who they were going to be and how they were going to be. Our children have done various things which, well, sometimes the decision to do them didn't sit well initially, especially with Mama. But I would be cool about it because I always say that we've prayed about this. We've prayed. Let me start from education, where they were going to go to school and how they ended up in those schools. When they came up, I go to the boarding house now, I say we have prayed. And finally, it was even Grandma who said yes. I don't have the time to tell you all the story, but Grandma, listening to our story, just made a remark which blew us all off. Doris went to the school and described the school to Grandma, who was sitting in Canada at the time. There was no video at the time, it was just phone. And she mentioned the number of the school has this, then it has flower, nice garden. Grandma said, stop there. And she said, listen, if anybody will build a school and take care of flowers the way you are describing them, you'll take care of your children. Look at an answer. Look at an answer. Where's it going to come from? So that was one. The next thing, Okunka wants to do music. And at the time, it was choosing the music. The discussion for career at the time was more about things that should come primary, not secondary. What do I mean? I mean that the jobs that don't serve, they are first line jobs. And they are the ones that everybody would take their money and request, and not that it's a service to a service. So when they are full and they don't have anything to eat, to do anymore, and they have excess funds, and so I want to listen to music, I want to go for some entertainment and things like that. And then Kofi said somebody wanted to play football. Yes, whenever anything any of the children wanted to do, we went through the motions. I drove Kweku from one academy to another, and to tell that if you want to play football, this is the life that you're going to live. And finally, he won't get chosen because of the politics and all the kinds of things that are going on. He just gave up. So, because I didn't know what was going to happen, we had prayed. We had prayed about their lives long before. I prayed about their lives long before I even met Doris, and we started dating. And then when we got married, we prayed. And when she was pregnant, any of them would pray my hand over her womb and all of that. We would pray and pray. So I knew I'd prayed enough, and that whatever comes, we would just get along and do that. So I think people should be more proactive. Naniel's music, for example, at the time, like I'm saying, there was plenty of talk about, no, this was a crisis time, the 2008, 2009, where jobs were collapsing and the financial crisis. So you don't go and do things like, I'm going to do music, no, that's not the kind of thing. So after so much talk and everything, we fly out and we are coming through Dubai. And in the evening, we'll visit somebody, and the person takes us to this pond where, when the music plays, the fountain comes alive in the rhythm of the music, with the lights that would make it fun and everything. We're standing by the pond, and then Doris asked me, so is this one of the things Daniel can do when he does music? I said, yes. She said, so there's no argument anymore. Let's go. And he went to one of the most expensive music schools in the world. Because we had prayed, God provided the funds. All right, He provided the money. So, that's why I'm encouraging us to be more proactive, pray into the future and about all these children, and God will do. And when the time comes and you have to take decisions, trust Him that He who has brought you this far will help you make the right decisions as well. Let me finish off with, our children have gone international. None of them is marrying a Ghanaian. We are left with one more. We don't know what's going to happen. But these are things we prayed about. I told you we prayed a long time. When he said he had found a girlfriend, it was this. I said, I flew to Boston to see her. Then I flew to South Africa to see her mom. Do you see the thing? When Kopi said he had found a girl who is Jamaican, American, I flew into America to see who she was. I went and saw her parents, and her sister. And just to, and I'm saying more of how to accept them and be, because that's his choice, and that's what he has. That's a prayer, our answer to prayer. And each of them came here and spent about 2 weeks with us. I said to them, come and spend some 2 weeks with us and know who we are and what we are. And then you make your decision and confirm that, yes, he says he wants you. Do you think you want his family? We are this, we are that, and here we are. So they also come and spend time with us. And again, in all of this, God did provide the necessary things, whether it was a visa or money for airfare, whatever, He did. if we would pray well in advance, prayer is like money in a bank. In a good bank, please, in a good bank. Don't put your money just in any bank.
Reverend, steady.
Put it in the right bank. The right bank will not only maintain its value, but actually even increase the value for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ankama. Thank you.
I had one quick thing.
Go ahead.
The one question I get a lot is, how do I know what I'm good at? How do I find, what do I enjoy?
Yeah.
There's resources out there like the Strength Finders test, DISC assessment, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, and those things help you understand who you are so that you can get to choose and pick what you do. And I think a lot of those resources were not available, at least when we were making big decisions. So just access all the resources out there.
Yeah. Jovin, could you please type some of those resources in the chat so that our participants can pick up the DISC, the Enneagram, at least if you can type some of them there for them. Okay, thank you so much. I think I would have Kofi, if you can in just a minute, give us your closing remarks.
What are my closing remarks? So I think I just want to go back to my five P's in no particular order. Pray, plan, have a purpose for what you're doing, persist and persevere, or persist or persevere, and have a passion for what you do. Always remember that in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. And the one that I love the most, do you see a man that is skilled in what he does? If you are diligent in what you do, you will serve kings. You will not serve mere men. You go to the very forefront in anything that you do. Let's do it with all our hearts. Let's do it so well. And when you are in the windy path, when you seem not so certain about what you are, what you want to do, talk to God about it in your simple ways as you walk, as you drive, and God will answer you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kofi. Irene, give us something to close with. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's Jeremiah that God said he knew you, or he knew him when he was in his mother's womb, when he was born. So our strength, our weaknesses, our capabilities, whatever we are made up of, God knows us. I like us, if we're really rounding it up, let's go to the source who knows us to really direct us and help us. And sometimes you put people, as Kofi said, counsel our way just to lead us, direct us, tell us what to do. But please work with all your heart, your mind, your soul, everything. Really ask unto the Lord, or as you're really, really receiving a reward for whatever you do. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Cecil, could you give us your closing?
Okay. So it's basically the same as what they said, that you should persevere, persist, be consistent with everything you do. Whatever you set out to do it very well. That's one thing my dad always said. And I used to tell myself this too, that no effort goes unrewarded. That's what I used to tell myself a lot, that no effort goes unrewarded. Just keep putting in the work. Just keep moving. And also talk to people in your shoes. If you want to be something, look for someone who has achieved it already and follow their steps. Let them guide you. Even if you cannot meet them personally. I mean, we are in a day of social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find people like you who have achieved what you want to achieve, and then you learn from them. That is one of the best ways to achieve whatever you want to achieve. And try as many things as possible. Like a lot of younger folks would say, how do I know what I'm good at? I don't know what I'm good at. I can't find my passion, but haven't tried anything. Try as many things as possible. That is the only way you know what you're good at. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jovin, we started with you or end with you. what will be your closing remarks?
I'll say continue to ask questions of God in this whole process. Ask questions of people, ask questions of yourself, because all of these things is all about learning what your calling is, your purpose is, seeking mentors on the journey, and knowing yourself even more. And so I'll probably close with Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which we quote all the time in the Message version, which says, trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure it out on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do, everywhere you go, and He's the one who will keep you on track.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jovine, for your time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Sampon. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Cecil. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, everyone who joined us today for The Truth About My Career. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've picked something. I hope you've been inspired. You've been guided. I hope also you've been confirmed even in some of the things you've been thinking and wondering. I think that our mission as the Anaviosi team handling Career Month was to support you in your career. And we believe in the fact that indeed faith, hope, and love can be at work. And we're hoping that all of these help you. Tomorrow we have a session on Anaviosi, an actual sermon delivered tomorrow. We have it tomorrow, and it is going to be on the topic of love, diversity, and inclusion versus spiritual integrity. We know that this conversation keeps coming up a lot, and that we're ready to talk about it. And so please join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. Live on Zoom. And we'll be on the church's Zoom, Accra Red Church. You find us on Zoom. On YouTube, on the church's YouTube channel, Accra Red Church. So you can ask your questions and interact with us on Zoom, on YouTube. We'll be on Zoom and we'll stream onto YouTube. So join us on YouTube tomorrow at 6 p.m., please. And then also, as part of the Career Month, we have some very interesting virtual counseling going on over the weekend on Sundays. And so just like how we've had people like Irene and Kofi and everyone here speak today, we have professionals who dedicate their Sunday to talking to us. And so you can come and get all the information you want on specific careers. And on this Sunday, we will have professionals, very experienced professionals in accounting and finance, arts and crafts, software development, architecture and construction, communication design, and project management, Prince 2. So that's happening this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. These are very qualified professionals who are offering their time to talk to you. So if any of these careers are of interest to you, or you're trying to get better in any of them, I suggest you join us, and it's going to help us all in our careers. And so these are the programs we have for the rest of the week. Please join us just the way you have today. We'll really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming today. Reverend Ankama, I pray you are still with us. I would like for you to close us off with a prayer.
And thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Irene.
Let us pray. God our Father, work and career is very important for you. It is one of the forms of worship for you. And it's one of the things that you engage us so that we are not idle and become the devil's workshop. So right from the beginning, when man was lonely and didn't know what to do, you provided it as one of your solutions. It wasn't the best of your solutions, but it did suffice for a while. And as part of our lives, yes, career, vocation, work, what our hands find doing, very important. And we have talked about it. We pray ahead for those yet to be born and those being born and those coming up to the time of choice, that you would guide them and their parents, their teachers, their guardians, their churches, their schools, and even other professionals in those vocations to help them make the right and needful decisions, to counsel them rightly, to encourage them, to go against the odds where it's necessary, to go against the barriers where it's needful, And when they have made the decisions, Lord, provide all the resources, their training, their exposure, and if there's knowledge or any reading or any, give them the interest that is required. Let them stick to it through thick and thin, because if that's their passion or calling you have on their life, it is the best place they will find fulfillment. It will not be the cash, nor be the titles that they are accorded, but that's your purpose, which surpasses all things, will be done. So thank you. We ask all of this in the matchless name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend.
Amen.
Amen. Welcome. You're welcome, Kofi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
So,
See you tomorrow.
that's all. I want to be a baker. I'm not thinking of I should have taken my baking seriously.
So I think at this rate, you just need to bake
Irene,
and share.
Jovin, wonderful job.
Thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in. So we'll see you tomorrow.
And thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Jovin, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Cecil, Irene, Kofi, thank you all. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.